Hello friends, hello everyone. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick, coming to you from a very overcast, cold and windy, let's make sure of the cold and windy day here in Maryland. Hello everyone, I see everybody popping in, and we were having a little bit of a chat before we went live, so much so that I forgot to hit the go live button. So I was a couple seconds late today. All right, friends, we're just going to dive right into it today. Today's tutorial is going to end up being a card tutorial, but there's more technique, a little bit more technique involved. All month long, I've been sharing tutorials using watercolor pencil as like the main medium. Today, I wanted to kind of bring that into another tutorial and technique-based tutorial and do some experiments with colored pencil and alcohol markers. I'm going to use Copic markers today. You might use other alcohol, any kind of alcohol marker that you might have in your stash will work with this technique. So, okay, I see everybody popping in and saying hello. Friends, I did put the supplies that I'm using, for the most part, down below in the description. I did get that done before we went live. If you have questions along the way today, just pop them in the chat with the word question and we'll go from there. But let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. All right, friends. Let me move this down. So here's the inspiration for the card today, or here's the actual card we may end up making. But the inspiration for today has been based on a lot of the watercolor techniques we've been doing this month so far with watercolor pencil. We have so many friends joining us from Canada today. Hello everyone in Southern California. It's so kind of cool to see where everybody pops in from. It just brings me such joy. But today, okay, so let's set this aside. That's going to be like the eventuality of what we're going to try to do. But what I want to do is talk today about, I need to move some things out. I want to talk about using alcohol markers and watercolor pencils, okay? So let me just grab some watercolor pencils and some alcohol markers. So I have Copic chows here. This is just what I grabbed really quickly. Some Copic markers and some watercolor pencils. I taught Copic marker techniques for probably about 10 years at a local scrapbook store here in Maryland. I loved teaching them so much, and the reason why I liked alcohol markers, Copics, there's lots of different ones on the market. There's Prismacolor, there's Olo, there's oh my gosh, there's so many different kinds of alcohol markers that are out there. Hoo-hoos, like there's so many different things that are available now. The reason why I like them is because they give you the watercolor effects that I love about watercolor. And they're very popular in the paper crafting industry and very, very popular with paper crafters. I've used them for a really, really long time, probably about 25 years or more, a little bit more than, way more than that actually, because I used them back in college. But I really like them today, and I'm going to talk today about using them with watercolor pencils, okay? And I specifically said that I was going to talk about them in relationship to 3 different kinds of paper. Now, when you're using watercolor, we're just getting right into it, friends. We're going right into the Nerdville, and we're going to start in with our technique. This is going to take, explaining and sharing this technique with you is going to take longer in today's tutorial than actually making the card. So we are really kind of focused on that. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so one of the things about alcohol markers that's really important is paper. One of the things about watercolor pencils that's really important is paper and the different kinds of paper that you can use. I'm always using watercolor paper for watercolor techniques, but using watercolor paper with alcohol inks, alcohol markers, is a little more challenging. It's a little less smooth, but I wanted to kind of walk out what that looks like. And I'm just sharing this with you big, and then we're going to actually do it a little bit smaller in the teacups. But the cool thing about using alcohol markers, and if you have them in the stash, is that they layer very, very well with watercolor pencils, colored pencils, other coloring mediums. You just have to do the Copic marker work first. So that's what we're going to do today. So I have Gina K layering white cardstock. I have some Bristol vellum, and vellum is very easily readable, like easily findable, to be honest. You can find it in your local big box stores. It's sort of like a cardstock. It has a little bit of a tooth to it. Bristol vellum is kind of one of my favorite things to use when you're using markers that are water-based, like Tombow markers or Zigs, because you can put a little tiny bit of water on it and you can get it moving. It's not watercolor paper, but it has a little bit of a tooth in it and you can move some things around. And then I brought in hot press paper today. Normally, I'm using Strathmore Ready Cut Watercolor cold press paper, and you can absolutely use that with this technique. It's just that the hot press paper, 100% cotton, Strathmore Ready Cut hot press, is smoother. So I feel like it's a good mishmash between this and this. It's a smooth paper. Now what I want to share with you is, let's look at all three of these. Use the same inks, same markers, same colored pencils. And you can see that they look a little bit different. Some things look a little more vibrant than others. And they look a little bit different, and they layer a little bit different. Okay? So we're going to walk that out, and I'm going to talk you through that. Let's start backwards. Let's start with the hot press paper, then the vellum, and then the Gina K layering white. Okay? Let's get going. Let's start with our hot press paper here. And let's bring our little sample here. We'll put that kind of underneath my head, so to speak. Here's our hot press watercolor paper. I'm going to grab some markers. Let's just show you what I got. What do I have here? And I have some pencils. Okay. I also have some water, and I have some paintbrushes. Okay. I am going to use a mixture of some oranges here. Let's take that pink and put that back. And this yellow, I might use that yellow, I'm not sure. So I have 3 oranges here. I have like a dark, a medium, and a light. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into like the Copic numbering system and things like that. That's for another day. But what I want to do is I want to start to build up some color here. And then we're going to add some watercolor pencil on top of the hot press paper. And we're going to see how that looks. So, Copic markers and hot press paper. Not something that people would generally say, let's go ahead and use. And here's why. Watercolor papers are meant for watercolor, right? So you can see that I'm adding the color here. It's okay. It's blending pretty well. It's starting to bleed a little bit because I kind of went over the edge a little bit. It's okay, but here's the thing with the markers. Copic markers work really well on smooth papers, like Gina K white, like Nina Classic Crest Solar white, like those kind of papers. They work really, really well because the alcohol marker ink sits on top of the paper fiber. It kind of is super smooth and it sits on top. It does go into the paper fibers a little bit more. I feel myself nerding out, friends. It goes in, and often you can see it on the back of the paper when you're using. See how it bleeds through? So it's really kind of ideal for those kind of papers. When I'm using it on a hot press paper, or when we show you on the Bristol, it kind of drags a little bit because the hot press paper, the watercolor paper, is used to water. It's used to having the water come into the fibers and spread out. So it kind of drags a little bit. Does that make it bad or good? No, just different. And that's it, just different. And I feel like your effects are a little bit more muted because the watercolor paper is taking in a little bit of that ink and it doesn't really know what to do with it because there's no water to spread. Okay, so I've just added a little bit of a first layer of color. I'm going to go over this and add another layer. And I'm just doing some real basic Copic coloring. And then another layer of dark right here, just the darker orange just at the base. And then I'm going to come back with this lightest color and just kind of blend it out. So it is also a little hard on hot press paper to get a real big smoothie blend. See how it's not so super smooth? It's kind of, it's okay. It's not super smooth, but that's okay. I don't mind it. I'm going to just come in and add a little bit of color to our top here. Then we're going to come in and add some watercolor pencil. Let's just go ahead around here. Small scale, definitely. Small scale stamp here. Also, I used Gina K Designs Amalgam ink to stamp the teacup from Simplicity and Joy. I'm going to leave that top part open. Okay, so it's nice. It's a nice coloring. It's kind of a little bit harder to get that color, the darkest color, to blend. So what I really, really enjoy is, like last week when we did, was it last week or the week before? The week before when we did the cardinal and we did some underpainting of color. So what I really like about this is we've got this watercolor look. We've laid in some of this first layer of color, and now I can go back in with my colored pencil. And because this is watercolor paper, here's the colored pencil, and I'm going to use it. Hello, Susan. I'm going to use it in that circular motion. I'm going to really deepen that value of that orange. I might even just, excuse me, take it up the side here a little bit. Woo! Take it up the side a little bit. I'm working in that circular motion. I've got my fingers kind of back a little bit here on my pencil. All right, now hot press paper works a lot like cold press paper, except that it's smoother. And some of the other things that are really, really nice about it is that it does work really, really well with watercolor pencils and colored pencils. Because the surface is smoother and the fibers are more embedded, so you don't get that like crunchy like look on the paper. Hello everyone, more people popping in. Hello, hello. Okay, so see how I've got my brushes wet, my paper's dry, and all I'm going to do is just kind of lightly touch that color and activate it very, very gently. Now, what's happening underneath is that the Copic marker is not moving, right? The Copic marker is not going to move, but the watercolor is, so it's allowing me some opportunity to bring up some of that watercolor up along the side, up inside a little bit more here. I can even, we haven't even touched on this, but I can take a little bit off the tip. So I'm using the watercolor pencil kind of as my palette, and I've got a little bit of color. Look at all the splatters that it created from doing that. And I can just take some of that color and add it in right over top of that Copic work. So here's why I'm sharing this technique today. If you have alcohol markers and you really like the effects of watercolor, you can really achieve that look with your watercolor, with your Copic markers or your alcohol ink markers. And then you can also use them with your watercolor pencil. Now look at that. Ah! So we did the underpainting with the Copic markers and added a little bit of that watercolor pencil on top as a finisher. And it's just really, really lovely. I really, really like that. Really, really like that. Hello, hello. No worries, everybody that's popping in late. You always have the replay. So that's hot press paper and hot press watercolor paper and Copic markers. So you can see over here, smaller stamp. So everything kind of blends and feels like it's blending a lot more because the stamp is smaller. When you have a much larger stamp, excuse me, you see how we get a little bit more texture in here, which I don't mind because we could overstamp and do some fun things or layer some of our other stamps over top. You get a little more texture here because the Copic marker is harder to blend out, but it does have that watercolor-esque feel to it. And because you're using a marker, it can be a nice gateway into mastering some of these techniques so that you can get into the flow of using watercolor pencils or watercolors. And it kind of builds up our bravery muscles a little bit. That's what I kind of like about it. And it really does have that watercolor-esque feel in a little bit more of a controlled way. So, yes, Susan, this is what I really wanted to do. I really did want to show, like, paper-wise, some of these differences and why they are this way. Okay, so hot press paper, hot press watercolor paper. Digging it, liking it. All right, let's pull in, where did I put it? Oh my, where did I put my next one? Oh, right here next to me. Right here next to me. Now, vellum. Vellum, 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 vellum. You may or may not have vellum in your stash. Or you may have a paper that's vellum-like. So it feels a lot like cardstock. It's often a little bit off-white. So if you take a look at a white color cardstock versus like a Bristol vellum, you can see the difference. Bright white, more like a creamy white, not ivory, not cream, more like a just, I wouldn't even say a cloudy white, just more not bright, not a bright white at all. Now, Bristol vellum. Bristol vellum is a lot like a hot press paper in that it has some smoothness to it. However, there are some crunchies, what I call crunchies. So that's like little dips and waves in the paper. Bristol vellum, and I have a couple tutorials on the channel using Bristol vellum, and afterwards I'll go back in. Down below in the description, I have like detailed all of the watercolor pencil tutorials. I'll go back in and add the Bristol vellum tutorial where I specifically use water-based markers like Tombow. I think in that tutorial I used Zig markers, and why I think Bristol vellum is really, really good with those kind of markers for watercolor effects. I'll make sure I add that. Oh boy, everybody's sharing how cold it is. Okay, so this is Bristol vellum. So it is like a cardstock. It has a vellum-like feel to it. It's not clear, but it comes in paper pads. And I thought I had it right behind me, but if we have a little bit of time at the end, I'll grab the paper pad. Strathmore makes one. You can find it easily like in your local craft supply store. It's very, very common paper. And what I like about it though is if it's something that you're interested in trying out, it's very, very affordable. Very, very affordable. And I think it's good for paper crafting projects. I enjoy it. Now, let's do our little test of adding some Copic marker color to it. We're going to start with our lightest color. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to share. So I'm just adding, I'm feathering in some of that light color first. And remember, this isn't a full-on like Copic tutorial. If you all have like interest in like a full-on my version of teaching alcohol markers, I'm happy to do it in a future tutorial. There are so many amazing Copic tutorial people on YouTube. And one of the people I would highly recommend you go take a look at is Sandy Allnock. You can just look ALLNOCK. She's amazing. Something's going on with her YouTube channel right now. She got hacked, but Google her and you will find out a plethora of information about Copic tutorials. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Okay, so I've had that light color. Now I'm going to go in with the mid color and just keep feathering up some of that color about halfway up. Now, the feeling of Bristol, so it's going on a little bit smoother than the hot press paper because it's not watercolor. And it does go through, and you can see how it's feathering through a little bit. It does go through the paper, but it is a little bit smoother. So it does work. It doesn't drag my pen as much. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of this, of the orange down here at the bottom. So basically I layered all three colors, and I'm going to go back to this first one to just kind of blend out where those two lines meet. And this is kind of where the rubber hits the road with this paper a little bit. I get a better blend than what I was able to get with the watercolor paper. But a little bit better. Kind of smoother. Definitely smoother, but you can definitely see between some of the layers, and that's okay. So kind of dig this paper for that. I'm going to come in with a little bit of my, hello Heather. I'm going to come in with some of my, what color am I using? Dark cadmium orange, some of my watercolor pencil. And again, I'm using Albrecht Durer watercolor pencils. No big surprise, friends. I've been using the same watercolor pencils in all my tutorials this month. I'm going to come in and just do some circular motion over this, and you can see that color really applies deep and dark to this paper. Okay, if I do a little bit of a circular motion up here, you can see how much this vellum paper loves pencil. So I would encourage you to try it with your colored pencils too. Okay, Cheryl, great question. Sorry if this has been asked. When I use the yellows with alcohol markers, it will cause the permanent black to bleed and muddy up the color. Okay, that does happen a lot too, I think, with yellow. Here, one of the things that you want to check is to make sure that you're using, and you probably are, Cheryl, using an ink that's really, really good with alcohol markers. There's lots of different ones that are out there. I use Gina K AMALGAM. I find that it's really, really good. Another really good black ink is Memento Black Noir, I think it is. I'm probably mixing that up, but Memento's black. That's a really, really good one. Also, Cheryl, it could be your paper. So because your paper, if you're using a paper that might not be as Copic alcohol marker friendly, that color is going to bleed a little bit. So let me know in the chat what paper you're using and see if we can kind of troubleshoot that for you. Okay, got a lot, oops, wrong. Got a lot of that orange. Going to dip my brush in, and I'm just going to start to bring some of that color up. So see how I'm able to activate this color. Now on the Bristol's okay for watercolor techniques. It's often, Bristol paper will often be what you find in a mixed media sketchbook. It's good for light washes of color. It's not going to be good for a washy color. You need a good cold press paper for that. So I'm just adding a little bit of this watercolor across this top. See, I'm not able to see how the color is just staying where I put it. I'm not really able to go in here and do like long washes, and I'm going to show you like very, very light amount of color. I can make that move, but watch as I start to try to like paint. See how it doesn't go very far. It's not going to go very far. And I don't have a lot of water on my brush because this paper really can't take it. It can take a nice light wash of paper. Light wash of color. Light wash of water. Hot press paper can take a light wash to a medium wash to a heavy wash of water. Bristol, light, medium is pushing it. Medium okay, but definitely not wet into wet techniques. Like I cannot wet my paper and then come in. I can, and it's just not going to get the same kind of movement. See how it's hard for me to get it to move around. This paper it's just going to stay. Any kind of watercolor is going to stay where you put it. And it's not going to look super smoothie, but it's a really nice paper to use for your paper crafting projects with light washes of watercolor. So I would just call it like sketchy. It's kind of sketchy. So let's look at that. Here's Bristol Vellum. So you can see right here when I added the watercolor pencil over top, it kind of stayed where I put it. You can see that some of that texture in the fibers of the paper, like the little lumpy bumpies at the top of the paper, it kind of stays there. So it's not as super smooth, but it's got a lot of built-in texture without a lot of you fussing to make it happen. So Cheryl, the paper, it always comes down to that. It always comes down to the paper. Usually use an 80-pound cardstock and the same inks you suggested. We'll try some of the Bristol if you have it, Cheryl, for fun. We're going to use the Gina K layering white cardstock too for our next one. I like the Gina K layering white for Copic marker work. I like it a lot for our light wash of Copic marker work. I think it works really, really well. But it does. Whatever medium you are using, it could be watercolor, it could be acrylic paint, it could be Copic markers, it could be any kind of marker. Your paper matters. If I keep working this on this Bristol Vellum event and I keep adding water, eventually I'm going to tear a hole in the paper because it's just not made to handle massive, massive washes of color. I was already borderline. There was already a hole getting ready to be torn right here in that little bit that I did, because there's also, can you see a heart? I can see a heart right there. Eek. I love that. I've got to point it out every time I see it, but it's right there. Anyway, so much joy. So, and that stopped me right in my tracks. But there was already some of the fiber in the paper already starting to pill up from doing that. However, you can use your Bristol Vellum with watercolor and Copic. So super fun. Love that. Okay, now we're going to bring in the next one. Gina K layering white. Okay, Gina K layering white. I love Gina K's white cardstock. I just absolutely love it. It's a bright white, stamps well, everything just works as you expect it to work. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of Copic work. Now, one of the things I will share with the Gina K layering white cardstock is it's not the paper, it's me. I'm super heavy-handed, and I've talked about this on the channel many times, that I am super, super heavy-handed. So, and my Copic markers are super juicy. So sometimes things bleed a little bit. So like see how it bled a little bit out here? It's because I was just kind of going at it and having some fun. I just don't worry about stuff like that. If you worry about things like that, then you're not going to be as heavy-handed. I just don't worry about it because I know what's going to ultimately happen. I'm going to be heavy-handed and I'm going to make a mess. Okay, so I'm holding my pen. You could choke up on your pen if you want. I like to hold my pen out here and just kind of do like these broad strokes. These little feathering strokes. I'm going to turn this a little bit so that I can kind of hover that edge. Now, with Copic markers, I'm going to say real quick, the more color you add over a spot, like see how if I keep coloring over this spot, the darker it's going to get. So you can get some variation between lights and darks very similarly to the way you could with watercolor by adding layers over top of layers over top, that glazing or layering technique. You can do the same thing with one color in Copic markers, and you can get that watercolor effect of lights and darks. But today we're just doing some simple Copic work. And that's the other thing about this Copic work is that I'm just coming in really simply and adding that color. And you see how much smoother things seem to be? Right now you can see some definite color blocking, but I'm going to smooth all of this out. I'm going to add a little bit of the orange right here at the bottom. Oh, I could feel myself adding too much color. I could feel the pressure on my hand getting too heavy. So this is how I do it. I add in all my layers. It looks sort of like a candy corn right now, right? I've added all my layers in here. And I'm going to go back to my lightest color. So I worked light to dark, and now I'm going to go backwards, bring my light marker in, and just kind of go over everything that I've done and blend it out a little bit. I'm pushing it up and away and blending it out. So the Copic markers, or alcohol-based markers, will blend together. You see, I was already heavy-handed and it started to bleed. I knew it would happen. I knew it would happen. Hello, Debbie, watching from the car. I'm so pleased you're doing this with GKD and Copic markers. Yes! Okay, so I have a nice blend. I can still see my mid-tone there, and I don't mind it. Now, Gina K layering white cardstock is absolutely amazing for Prismacolor pencils or any other color pencils that you have in your stash. It is 100%, 100 out of a 100, cannot fail. It will look amazing every time. But I like watercolor pencils too. So I wanted to try to use our watercolor pencils. And you know what? Because we have the time. I'm going to grab the counterpart. Is it cadmium? This is dark cadmium orange. Let me grab the counterpart. Let me grab the colored pencil of dark cadmium orange and just kind of show you some of the differences. Okay, watercolor pencil. We're going to do it up here first. Now, the layering white cardstock is not meant for massive, massive watercolor work. It'll do the same thing as Bristol if you try to do super wet into wet washies on it. It's going to pill up. It's going to open up, pill up over time if you overwork it. However, you can use your watercolor pencils with the Gina K layering white or a white cardstock in some gentle washes to help enhance some of the color work that you're doing. And that's what I think is pretty amazing about it. And some of you might be saying, well, like, why? Why would I bother? Well, why not, right? Because we're having some fun and you're experimenting with the things that are in your stash, which makes it so much fun. Cheryl just said, oh, I think it just fixed my issue. I'm heavy-handed too. Yes, adding too much alcohol. Yes, that's, yeah, you saw it. You saw it live in real time, Cheryl. So that could be it. So try to back off a little bit and do things in a little bit of a lighter layers and lighter washes. And look, friend, you saw me. I'm still doing it. I'm very, very heavy-handed. So it just takes a little practice. All right, I'm going to take my watercolor pencil. I'm going to work in a little bit of a circular motion and just kind of show you what that looks like on the layering white cardstock. Now, it's beautiful. If you only have watercolor pencils and you want to use them on your layering white cardstock, you can very much use them like you would your colored pencils. Here's my color pencil. Let's do the same thing. However, I will tell you, your color pencil, the Albrecht Durer color pencils they're not wax based. I think they're oil based. I could be wrong. Prismacolors are wax based. Albrecht Durers are oil based. So you can see the more I go over top an area, the layering it gets deeper and darker. Where here, it's ready for me to add some water. Can I achieve a little bit more of an intense layer there, or more of a opaque layer? Yeah, I can. I just have to keep going. Keep going. Little bit smoother with colored pencils, a lot more texture with watercolor pencils. When I take the watercolor pencil and I activate it just a little bit, now remember, little bit of water, even less than what you would use with the vellum. You can make that move around a little bit, and you got a little time to kind of move it. But remember, it's just sitting on top of the paper. It's not going inside into the paper and spreading out into the fibers of the paper like it would a watercolor paper. But you can get some nice little washes with it, which is kind of fun. And if you wanted that kind of effect with your colored pencil, you'd use Gamsol. So I'm going to take my watercolor pencil, and I'm just going to come down here, and I'm going to add a little bit of an intense amount of color. Now, what I like about this is that it's really deepening because I built up the layers underneath, the underpainting, the layers of Copic work underneath. Adding this on top of it, there's already some color underneath it, so it's kind of creating a little bit of a tooth in the paper for the watercolor pencil to grip. And watercolor pencil loves that. Loves that. Okay, little washes, little bit of water. And then I'm just going to kind of feather it out. I'm even just kind of making sure I don't have too much water here. And I can feather this out. So yes, you can do some very, very light washes of watercolor mediums on your Gina K white. Yay! Thank you so much, Shara. Okay, digging it. Now, we got to get boogieing. Let's take a look at our 3 samples, and then we're going to make our card. We're going to do the teacup in real life. Okay. Gina K layering white. Like it. Like it. Bristol vellum. A little deeper in its color. Little less, it's not as deep. The colors are still beautiful and vibrant because this white paper is stellar. The Bristol vellum, more muted, but still bright. The hot press watercolor paper definitely has more, like this is brighter than this. So we have like, as far as our in-between, as far as our values of color from light to dark, I would put them in this order. The Gina K, hot press paper, and then the vellum. So we can see kind of how they look. Kind of fun. So, and also a really good example of how paper matters, but we use the same mediums. So they're going to react different on different papers. They're going to behave differently on different papers. And that's very much like what I talk about when I talk about watercolor brands, that every single one of them is just slightly different, right? Every single one of them is slightly different, and knowing it and understanding it is helpful for you when you go to grab things and help you to feel you can experiment more and help you to feel a little bit like you have a little more success in doing it. All right. Now let's just bring this home and use this card as our inspiration. Now for this card, for the release, I used the stencil and a little bit of Copic marker with this card. We're going to use, this is Gina K white. We're going to do the same thing that we just did. We're going to use the Copic markers and we're going to use watercolor pencils and just kind of whip this up and finish up our card and just chat while we're doing it. Got a little bit of schmutz on it. I'm going to start with my light color and I'm just going to feather in some. I'm going to try not to be heavy-handed. Cheryl, let's see if we can do it. Very, very light washes of this color all the way to the tippy top. And I'm coming in with my medium. Do the same thing, maybe just a little bit less intense. What I like about this too is it's a very, very fast way to get in some color in a very, very small area. Let's add a little bit of, look, I got a little dot there. A little bit of that orange. Let's go back to our lightest color and blend them out. Now I have the Copic Chows here. I also have the Copic Sketch markers. I just didn't grab them. I like these little chows. They're fun. We're going to leave that little dot there. I'm just going to blend this out a little bit, maybe to the top. Come across a little bit and maybe put just a little bit of that yellow right there. All right. I like it. Let's come in with a little bit of greens. Let's let some greens enter here. Let's just do a little. I'm doing all the Copic work first. Just adding some color. All the Copic work first, then we're going to go back and add in the colored pencil over top. I'm adding a little bit of that green right here. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, I already went outside the lines. Oh, well. Hello, Jackie. Welcome. We have so many friends that are joining us today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to go over this green. It's never lost on me that you're all taking the time to be here. So I hope you get a lot of value out of this tutorial today. Again, if you're new here or new to the channel, I love that. My paper crafting tutorials tend to focus on techniques and less on card making, the anatomy of making a card. So you won't see me like do this, do this, do this. I'm more of like, let's talk about the different kind of fun techniques and let's experiment together and see what we come up with. And it's always usually focused on watercolor or watercolor-esque techniques. All right, these little flowers are teeny tiny. And I'm just going to come in, just add like little bits of green in some of the greenery. Little bits of green. I'm not really worrying about trying to coat every single image with color. I'm just dropping some stuff in, see how it goes, just to give us some illusion of color. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Susan. I'm happy to hear that people like the idea of things just being about the technique, because I feel like, friends, if you kind of watch this, you don't have to be using the same exact stamp that I'm using ever. You don't have to be ever using the same exact colors, but it might give you some interesting. Oh, I think I don't want that color. I think I want one of these lighter ones. Let's try one of these lighter ones. It might give you some interesting ideas to grab your stash and try new things, and also help foster a little bit of understanding about why things might not have worked out, like, and how paper matters, and how some of the different things that you do for techniques really are an experiment depending upon the supplies you're using. Does it mean you have to have every single supply that I am using? Absolutely no, never, ever. It's just that I want to hope to be able to share these different techniques with you so that you can adapt them to the things that you have. Yay, Cheryl. Oh, thank you, Anna. Oh, thank you, Susan. Susan shared there are plenty of how to do specific card projects, so this is such a good resource. Thank you. And I agree with you. There are so many amazing paper crafters, and Gina is amazing, goes live twice a week, and really does focus on techniques and card making and pulling everything together. And I kind of want to be a little bit, I kind of have been for years on this channel, a little bit different in my approach. And I think it works, and I like using our time together as sort of walking into the lab, and we're experimenting. It's our Craft Your Joy Lab. For those of you who were in my Craft Your Joy Lab community before I closed it down, I shared with them that I was moving that over here too. So yes. Being an engineer, having the explanations is right up my alley. Thank you, Susan. Share live techniques, even with goofs. Yes, make it. That's the whole point. I used to make a lot of edited videos in the beginning before we started doing all the live stuff. And, you know, you would just edit out your mistakes. And I always felt like it was doing a bit of a disservice to the reality of what's really happening. So that's why I really, really like lives. A, engaging with you, answering your questions, and B, sharing these techniques with you real time that I've been doing, but I'm not a master at, right? We might do it well, maybe like 50% of the time, and sometimes we don't. So it's kind of fun to just keep practicing together and knowing how it's very enriching. It brings a lot of joy. So, Jane, you've been frustrated with alcohol markers in the past. I appreciate seeing how it can be done. I know it can be frustrating because it feels like you need to know a lot, but really it is a lot of playing around, a lot of experimenting. Okay, I'm going to take my watercolor pencil. We're pushing it. We're going to push it a little bit. And I'm going to add some of the watercolor pencil at the bottom here. Now you can see that it's really starting to get, I'm going to bring some up to the middle here so that you can really see. Now because I have a little bit of that Copic work underneath, again, it's created that tooth in the paper. This paper is very, very smooth, but it's created the tooth in the paper for some of that watercolor pencil to stick to, and it looks pretty opaque. And it's also creating that watercolor technique of layering and glazing. I'm layering this medium over top of the Copic work to enhance and deepen the color. Okay. Yay, thank you, Jackie. All right, now I'm gonna take, this brush has a little bit of water on it. I got too much, I could tell right away. Very, very light washes. And see how I'm able to work with Gina K paper in a very light wash here. And I can make that color move. I'm dancing my brush around and I can make that color move. Kind of like that. Kind of like what I did there too. Kind of went around a little bit. All right, I'm digging that. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more. Cheryl said, oh, thank you. I like your approach. That's the whys in the hows. That's kind of how my brain works. And everybody, you'll hear me say that like in every tutorial, that I'm geeking out because this is how my brain works. Because everything that I do that's art related or create is an experiment. And it's like, so you're getting, when I'm talking about it, you're getting what's going on in my brain in real time, which is kind of wild. Like if I was sitting here by myself, these are the things that I would be thinking about. All right, I'm going to take a little bit. What color do I have here? This is deep cobalt green. This is such a gorgeous color. Look at that color. It's like Gina's spruce, the deep spruce. Look at that. Very, very light wash. Oh my goodness, that color is juicy. I love it. We're going to use it. All right, let's put that right there. We're going to use it right here. I'm just going to add a little bit of that color in the leafery. And you can do all of your pencil work at the same time and then go back and add water. Or you don't have to add water at all. You can just leave the pencil work for the texture, which I think is really cool and fun with pencils, is that you can just leave the texture there if you wanted to. I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of water to just kind of brighten that up and move it over top of that water, over top of that Copic. Ooh, that was a lot. That was a lot of water. Now remember, you see that little spot right there? I won't be able to smooth it out. It's kind of like a one and done. If you add water and you move it, that's it. You're not going to be able to move it around. Like, see how, if this was watercolor pencil on watercolor paper, I could go back in and kind of reanimate some things and get them to move. And see how I'm not really able to get this to move, or I'm not really able to smooth out these lines? It's because it's kind of staying where I put it. This is a little bit of residual. And now if you touch this paper right now like I am, it's already starting, the paper fibers are already starting to break down. And if I kept going, I would bore a hole right through that paper. Okay. All right, I'm digging this. Really clean and simple. Like it. We're doing good on time. Let's go ahead and glue this on. I've got a piece of soft stone cardstock, Gina K cardstock. I could go back in. You know what? I'm looking real quick. I'm going to go back in just in the slightest way and add a little bit of, oh, this might be a mistake. Caught that in real time, friends. My brain saying, oh, let's do this. Oh, but ooh, that might not be good. Added just a tiniest little bit of that cobalt green over top of that minty, the minty Copic marker. I'm going to take a little bit of this tip. This is, instead of doing direct to paper, just taking a little bit of that water on that cobalt, and then I'm just going to use this as paint. Just kind of drop it in a little bit into those tiny little leafery pieces. And the reason why I did that is because I felt like that leafery was just a little bit flat. So I just added it in. Hello, Michelle. Oh, Jackie, I never would have thought to use my pencils with Copics. Now you know. I know I'm probably not the only one that's ever done it. Gina does. She uses colored pencils, her Prismacolor pencils, a lot in her tutorials, and they're amazing. Let's just get some glue. Look, I'm like not being very, I'm pretty sloppy with the glue. That's okay. All right, gonna open up my soft stone cardstock piece, and I'm just gonna lay this down. Just eyeball it and lay it down. And then I brought in, we're just gonna add, this is gonna be a sweet little card. See this right here? I keep thinking, ooh, go back in and fix it. Ooh, go back in and fix it. No, we're not going to. I like it. I like the little bit of a texture that it's adding. So sometimes you have to resist the urge to keep noodling with it. I've got some, what do I got here? Let's add, I've got these little dots. There's also some salt in here too. So I want to use the pink little dots. Got my little pokey tool. Let's just go ahead in and add some. I'm just adding a bunch of little glue dots. We'll come in with some of the pink. I love these little pastel dots. They're Gina. I pretty much use them all the time. I've used them many times on this channel. I like them because they're super cute. They look like confetti, like little funfettis, and they're flat. and they're just super cute. Was that 2? No. There we go. It's like, was that 2? All right, friends, while I'm putting this confetti on, we have a brand new Gina K release happening on Tuesday. And I think, I haven't been online yet today to see, but I imagine that Gina will start doing the teasers pretty soon. Do I want one right there? Something tells me that I want one right there. So I have something really fun coming out. I can't wait to share it. So next week I will have a new release video coming out on Tuesday evening, and then I will have the paper crafting tutorial will be on Thursday, and on Tuesday midday over lunch right now, depending upon how everything goes with the release, and I've got so much release prep going on over there, I'm planning a Tuesday tutorial, watercolor tutorial. All right, I'm digging the way this looks. It's kind of like fun, wild, really easygoing color. Let's do a quick review of what we did today. Quick review, we talked about hot press, vellum, Gina K layering white, talked about using your Copic markers and layering your Copic markers and using them like a watercolor because they are very watercolor-esque, and alcohol markers are like that. And adding our watercolor pencils over top to just kind of enhance, deepen the color, and experiment a little bit. Really, really like it. So, okay, friends. Okay, so I talked about Tuesday's new release with Gina K, and that will be at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll have a tutorial video, not a tutorial, a release walkthrough video of my new release that's coming out. And I'm going to say, gosh, I hope I can say this. It's something that goes with the Basket of All Seasons die set. There, I said it. So some of the Gina will start releasing some of the teasers of all the different stamp sets and dies that are coming out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So next Tuesday and Thursday, I will be going live as well. Tuesday, keep an eye out. If you're on my email list, probably on Monday or sometime over the weekend, I'll send out all the links for next week's tutorials. And yeah, we're going to have fun. So next week, we'll have a release, a watercolor tutorial, and a paper crafting tutorial of some sort. I'm excited. Okay, friends. Eek. Yes, I'm just looking at everybody's comments. Yay! Oh, Susan said, yeah, I've been waiting for that. So maybe you know what I might be talking about, right? So something fun. Okay, friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. I made it on time today, which is like, you know, rare, right? And super, super fun. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. If you're at all interested in joining my email list, that information is down below in the description. I've also got a link down below to the Gina K clearance bin online in the online store for you to take a look at. I have 12 stamp sets that are being retired out of my collection. And I have designed 68 stamp sets for Gina K. So over time, things have retired. So kind of fun. A link is down below in the description, and those clearance items are really going for a steal. Okay, I'm just looking at everybody's comments. Okay, thanks for being here, friends. I will see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. And if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. You can pop questions in the comments, and it's me answering you. Okay, have a great weekend, friends. I'll see you next week. Bye now.